Andrea DeVito, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you very much, John. Nice to be
It,
here.
it is a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from the New York area. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about Amazon HR cuts and what that signals for trends across corporate America. Perhaps a dangerous signal here. And I think it's a really important item to be discussing. And frankly, it's not just Amazon, right? It's lots of organizations and what it means for companies and for human capital and for labor markets and for all of that. So as we get started, I wanted to share Erin's bio with everybody. Erin DeVito is the general manager of Impact North America, leading teams that design transformative, people-centric learning experiences. Since joining Impact in 2012, she has helped organizations navigate change, strengthen leadership, and build cultures where people thrive. With more than a decade of experience across operations and senior leadership, Erin brings a deep belief in the power of human connection to everything she does. A mom of five, she's constantly reminded of the beauty in imperfection, growth, and humor in chaos. And she channels that perspective into creating workplaces where people can bring their whole selves to work and do their best, most meaningful work together. I love everything about that. Everything about that tail end that I was just sharing is 100% like my mantra. And I'm a father of six, and so I can relate to the
Wow.
mother of five. Chaos, like the chaos aspect that you were sharing in your bio. Humor and chaos, I think, is very apt.
I mean, even being one-upped in this moment, it's rare that I find someone who's like, I have more kids than you. So it's wonderful. And I could probably talk to you and get some advice for hours after this. But thank you so much for having me. And even as you were teeing this up, talking about Amazon, I immediately went to so many other contexts, right? Where we are experiencing AI, the speed of that. And it's it's one of those that it's happening in the workforce, and that's where we drive a lot of attention to. But we also have, as you know, you have six, I have five, like there's a whole generation of people coming into this workforce who have a completely different exposure to AI and all that's doing in the school system. So it's touching us everywhere. And I think it's really timely conversation. So, because you caught me on a Monday where I'm half in kid mode and half in work mode right now, just adjusting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, very good. So why don't we start by digging into Amazon a little bit? Like you said, I
Yeah.
think this applies to lots of different contexts, lots of different examples, but we know that um, many industries are automating HR, automating many functions, and but within HR, there's certainly this desire through agentic AI and through other AI automating automation opportunities, to streamline a lot of those processes to a lot of those jobs are stalling or in some ways or at least pieces of getting displaced. And then my oldest two daughters are college students, and they're approaching completion and entering the workforce, and they're kind of freaking out, and I'm kind of freaking out for them. Like, what does this look like for early career professionals when organizations seem to be at least in a wait and see mode, if not having already decided we're not hiring people right out of college because we have AI agents and whatnot to do this work for us. It's a really interesting time. And I don't think, I mean, this is kind of the wild, wild west, and I don't think we have anything figured out yet. And there's going to be so many implications. What are you seeing as some of the challenges that are coming from this kind of Amazon effect of what companies like Amazon are doing in terms of reducing or at least pausing on their HR hiring?
Yeah. I love the Wild Wild West theme because I think we don't know. I mean, it's changing rapidly. There's all sorts of information. I mean, even if you think to the point where we have access to so much data, so much information, everything in the world that people are saying, um, it's easy to make quick judgments on it. So I think, and it's easy to be scared of it. And it's
Mhm.
easy to be like, oh my God, what is going to happen? How? Sorry, gosh. Um, how am I going to make my way through this? And, whether I'm dealing with clients or working with my own team or my kids, I think it's really, really important now more than ever to come back to that human connection and that human piece. Because at the end of the day, AI is a technology. It's massively changing. It will continue to massively change and impact our work. And automation and all of those things are also, they have benefits to them and opportunities there. But when we talk about jobs being displaced, people struggling. I mean, even down to recruitment for people as they enter in the workforce, that's completely automated and changed. So how you have the right things in your resumes written, um, I think it's a constant opportunity to keep staying current on a lot of it, but the most current you can stay is human, right? And so how we continue to build those skills to think through not just the automation, but what it's for, how it's going to impact people, how we continue to bring the human aspect, because that's what's going to keep a healthy organization healthy. It's the people doing the work, being brought in, being exited. Um, I could ramble on for a while, but I think sometimes it's easy to look at it like I'm in this, like, I have 5 kids, so I'm in a fitness craze right now. They all make fun of me and yell at me. But it's a new thing. And I keep coming back to this, like, well, AI isn't the fix, right? It's not going to make us all lean and muscular and healthy. It's a supplement. It can be useful. It can be dangerous depending on how you use it, but it still requires the training, the discipline, the hard work to get where you want to get to. So I think the more we look at AI as something that is part of a solution and not all of it, and it still requires our human hard work, our
Yeah.
discipline, our training, our leadership is is the right steer, right? How we navigate it.
Yeah, I think that's a really wise way to kind of frame that. And I think it, maybe a slight tweak, or really just a complementary kind of way of thinking about it is just augmentation, human augmentation via this tool, just like we've
Mhm.
had at every stage of innovation in the workplace. You think, people talk about how we're in industry 4.0 or even 5.0, and every stage of the industrial revolution, we've automated and we've displaced jobs. But we've also, at the same time, we've freed up people to do less mundane and to do more creative and innovative types of things. And I think when companies say in Amazon, or name any, long list of
Mhm.
them, are cutting jobs or reducing hiring or whatever, um, they're looking at it from a lens of labor cost savings, right? They're like, how can we do what we're doing for less, and we can use more AI agents and whatever. And I think, I mean, there are so many potential unintended consequences from that, that
Yeah.
they need to be very careful about. But I just think the whole framing's wrong. I think it's driven by short-term incentives and quarterly earnings reports and all that kind of stuff. But like, if we're really looking at long-term sustainable, um, you know, success for organizations and ongoing innovation, you cannot lay the human side. You can't put the humans aside. They have to work hand in hand, and it's not about reducing labor costs as much as I think it's really about human augmentation via these tools. And so how can we,
Yeah.
what we're already doing, how can we do it better? How can we do more of it better, more efficiently, and having humans that can curate the outputs of these AI tools, so that we're still having good quality and we're still, bringing real value to the market and not just a whole bunch of AI slop. That's where I think it's really going to matter. And I see that as the differentiation between, what many companies are doing and kind of approaching. Now, we should also say, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, especially as it relates to my daughters, but many companies are just completely in a wait and see mode. They're not
Mhm.
sure what to do. They're not cutting jobs. They're not displacing workers. They're just kind of like, we're not sure what to do, and so we're just kind of going to wait and see. They don't want to hire and then have to lay people off, etc. And so it really is just really an interesting time to see how all this evolves. Nobody knows how it's going to continue to evolve. But one thing is clear, humans still have to be in the loop, right? And
Yeah.
if they're not in the loop, then we're going to have all of these super negative unintended consequences. And as I mentioned, the engagement declines that we're seeing in organizations in terms of employee engagement, um, employee activation, employee satisfaction, all of these things are not going well,
Yeah.
and we either have to adjust for it, or we're gonna kind of be shooting ourselves in the foot, and hurting our own opportunities in the future.
Yeah. Absolutely. I had so many thoughts as you were speaking because it's spot on. I mean, it's the last time I'll go back to the fitness analogy, but you can get short-term wins, right? You can
Absolutely.
crash diet, you can, starve yourself, you can run thousands of miles, but if you're not paying attention to your body, to your system, you could be reducing your muscle. You could be malnutritioning, like have malnutrition. Like there's so many effects that will show up in the long term, but even if you're getting short-term results, you've lost 10 pounds or whatever it is. So I think you're spot on with how we need to think through and be really intentional with what we're trying to do. What is our purpose? What are we trying to be more efficient for? What do we want to hold on to with our people, with our culture? If we're going to make, because we have, I mean, and some organizations might be in a position where they have to make mass layoffs because everyone is in a holding pattern, and that's from buyers to general economy. Um, and because it's nerve-wracking right now. So they might be forced to do that, and it might be automation is the way to go. But even with making the tough calls, how we nurture and take care of what we want to have at the end of that is so vital, because as we're doing that, if people don't understand why, if they're not communicated with consistently, clearly, if they aren't feeling like what I do matters and I have a value to bring that can be enhanced by technology or not, then we run the risk of losing that muscle, losing the heart, losing the motivation to keep going. And I think that's where, you know, going through any kind of change, even if you're in a holding pattern, it is so important to be checking in. Are we communicating what people need to hear? Because people will fill in the blanks and make up the stories that feel, give them either drives the fear or drives the motivation. And are we being consistent? Are we being ethical? Are we valuing people and what we have through whatever change? Like how do we lead people through this change to lead businesses through the change? Because change is inevitable as we're seeing. And we're seeing that every day with our clients. Like at one point it was, you know, leadership development and the soft skills and upskilling and, through all of the things that were happening, there was still that leadership development focus. Now it's all how do we lead through change and complexity and all of that. So I think even if you're in a standstill, we can still be helping people navigate change because it's inevitable.
Yes, it is. And I really like I know you say you don't want to keep going back to the fitness analogy, but I think it's just a really good one. Um, because you're absolutely right. How many people get the short-term wins with weight loss, but it's not done in a healthy way whatsoever. It's not done in a sustainable way, first of all. So they're going to yo-yo
Yeah,
diet, right? And they're going to end up just gaining the weight back. But yeah, you lose muscle mass, or you just have other negative health impacts because it's not just all about weight, right? It's
yeah,
about the holistic health of the individual. And weight
yeah,
is one symptom. And if you're totally focused on just the weight, then you can do all sorts of other things to kind of screw yourself up.
yeah,
And you won't necessarily see it immediately. You'll just feel good because, hey, look, I dropped 10 pounds or whatever. And yeah, I mean, apply that directly over to, okay, we just cut 20% labor costs because now we put in place this agentic AI. Okay, great. But what does that mean in the long run? Like, there's very little conversation around work redesign as it relates
mhm,
to the humans integrating with any AI use,
yeah,
which baffles me because that's one of the differences I think between what we're seeing happening right now versus other stages of disruptive innovation over the say the last 150 years of the industrial revolution. At every stage you would redesign work to
Yeah.
go along with whatever the new innovation was. And right now, I don't see that. I just don't see
Yeah.
much meaningful or intentional work redesign. It's just everyone saying use AI, and then you have all this haphazard adoption across units and teams and individuals using all these different tools. And in some cases, you're able to actually displace whole tasks or even people with
Mm.
agents or whatever. But in many cases, you just have, I mean, there's quite a few studies showing that the ROI on AI implementation is not there yet.
Yeah.
And yet companies are investing an incredible amount of money into it, and they're reducing their labor costs, at least in the short run. But at what cost in the long run? I mean,
Yeah.
are you just completely eroding your own capabilities in the long run? And I'm
Yeah.
super worried about that. Not just for organizations or for my daughters or whomever, but like for the state of society as a whole. Like I'm really worried about
Yeah.
how we wrestle with this. Because if we don't, if HR is not at the forefront of trying to think through how we redesign work in relation to this technology, then we're just going to have it imposed upon us, and it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
And there's going to be so many negative unintended consequences from it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love that point, and I'd go as far as to say if purpose and why isn't at the center of that, and that is driven by HR, by people, um, we're we will struggle. We'll keep dealing with a challenge versus turning it into an opportunity, right? Because I think with technology and things like AI, we can easily get into a pattern of like, oh, this is great. It's thinking for me. It's starting to sound like me. It knows my personality. It will just create all of this stuff for me. Um, but if you don't have a strong hold on purpose and what you're trying to achieve and why you're trying to achieve it, and everyone in your organization isn't like really clear on that, you lose slowly over time direction with that. And all of a sudden the words start to form differently and you start making up like, oh, well, we'll veer over here because AI is telling me to. And I guess the best way I can describe it, I was recently working on a performance review revamp. And AI was extremely useful, right? Like it came
Yeah.
in and it helped like revamp different expectations, how we'll word different things. And it saved so much time that I would have spent helping someone work through, okay, well, the semantics of this word versus that word and four different drafts and everyone aligning around language. But so yes, it saved a ton of time, but it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't know your company's values or expectations or guiding principles or mission. And so you have to align that language to that. It has to sound like you. It has to promote the voice that your company has. And it's not going to replace the training or need of people to have those conversations. So at the end of the day, it's still humans driving that process. It can make it cleaner, it can make it easier to build the process, but you still need drivers. And so if you can use that technology to help do, like you said in the beginning, the front work, you still can't take your foot off the gas. So you have to look at and be driving that why and the purpose and the ability for people to have the right conversations in the performance review example. Because the technology is not going to do that. They're not going to make the discernment of like, okay, yes, this is where someone's doing really, really well. And this is, not part of the role, but where that person is so valuable behind the scenes, connecting different functions and stepping up into things they're not necessarily supposed to do or have to do, but it's carrying a heartbeat in the organization. Um, there's people behind that context that are really, really important in noticing that, deciding to do something with that and acting on it, but also having people be seen, right? Like that's so important. I remember someone's like, all they had to say to me was I was having a tough week with something. And someone's just like, I see you. And I was like, wow, that's really, really powerful and important. I needed to hear that, right? So AI can't do that. Automation can't do that, but it can empower us to find those moments where we can be more intentional, more mindful, and more present for people to do that because I didn't spend 50,000 hours trying to draft 10 expectations in the right language,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, it's algorithmic, right? And so
Hmm.
that's the challenge. You brought up a great example of why this matters so much. It's because there are so many people that do so many things behind the scenes that are outside of perhaps the strict scope of their job to connect and to collaborate and to innovate
Yeah.
that drive so much value. I mean, there are lots of studies on this, about how, a relatively small percentage of people within any team in any organization derive so much of this value. But in an age of metrics driven organizations, and I'm not against metrics, don't get me wrong, but it's like the old saying goes something to the effect of what you can measure doesn't matter and what matters can't be measured, something to that effect.
Yeah.
AI is algorithmic, and so you're only putting in what specifically you're measuring, and then it's not going to see the other stuff that actually really matters, that's really hard to quantify, that's really hard to measure. And if you just have a race towards the KPIs, and there's nothing wrong with KPIs, but like if it's just a race across the whole organization towards these metrics, and you completely disincentivize any of this other behind the scenes, real important work that happens in every organization, you're just going to have a hollow shell of an organization. You're going to have a house of cards
Yeah.
that's ready to completely collapse, if you're not investing in your people. And that's just the short-sightedness, I think, of how some organizations are approaching this right now. And
Yeah.
it makes me really concerned for them and their long-term success, for their people, and the ripple effects it's going to have throughout society. Well, Erin, this has just been a fantastic conversation. I note the time and I need to let you go here in a minute. But
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word for today.
Okay. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, like most people, Erin DeVito. Impactinternational.com is our website. And yeah, I'm sure if you're listening to, people have a way of contacting you, John, and you can connect them over. But I would be delighted to connect with anyone. And this is just a story that popped in my head. And if you know, you don't know much about me, but I tend to go with whatever moves me. So if you have a minute, I'll tell a simple story. I have a 4-year-old daughter who is slightly on the spectrum. We're not sure we're diagnosing, but she gets very fixated on things and has a really tough time when she doesn't like when it goes awry. And we're all learning to manage. This is new for us. It's a change in our family dynamic. But she had these 6 eggs all through Thanksgiving, and she's carrying them around, and she's like making sure that she has them at all times. And anytime she lost one, she'd kind of like have a bit of a meltdown, and we'd go find it. And so it became a bit of a pattern. And I got everyone home, and that night we went up to bed, and she lost one of the eggs, and she was just unconsolable. And I bring her upstairs, and I'm like hugging her and singing Old MacDonald and trying everything. And my 7-year-old daughter went downstairs. I guess she was paying attention. She knew what was going on. And she cut out in paper 6 eggs. She made all the designs like the eggs were that my 4-year-old had. And she comes running up the stairs and she's like, Mommy, Mommy, I think this will help. And she hands her the 6 like cut out eggs. And it worked. Like all of a sudden,
Wow.
Josie was so happy. She was like, oh my God, this is great. And my daughter, 7 years old, made that happen. And I think the reason the story comes to mind is we still need to pay attention to our environment. We still need to understand what is going on with people on whatever level, because there's so many things that are behind, closed doors that we would never notice unless we start to pay attention and ask. And AI is not going to come off with that solution. That was someone thinking, ooh, understanding the context, thinking through all the different solutions she could come up with. And that was one she thought of and she gave it a try. And she's like, I'm not sure this is going to work or not, but here you go. And luckily it did. But I think it's so important that we're paying attention to the environment around us, the people around us, what drives them, what makes them frustrated, what triggers them, as best as we know how or can open up. And then still using the power of our brains with the help of technology, with the help of crayons and paper to work on solutions to the best that we can, whether they'll work or not, and doing the human thing of taking care of each other, right? Like seeing someone in need and trying to help. So, silly little story. I'm still a mom at the end of the day,
What
but
a sweet story. Yeah, that is a really sweet, touching story, and it's really apt. Thank you so much. Amen.
of
Well
course,
said.
thank you.
As always, I hope everyone will reach out to Erin. That you'll find out more about what Erin and her team can do for you. And I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe. That you can find meaning and
Absolutely.
purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.